Hello, everyone. Gonna just test if this is working here in the kitchen. Also, so we can see everyone's questions, if anyone has any. Let's see here. Zane, is it showing up for you?
I'm seeing it on my page.
You are, okay. Let me see if I see it here. There it is. All right. Well, welcome everybody. Zane and I talked earlier today and decided it was his idea to do an impromptu little chat about the chainsaw serve, the spin serve, and the proposed rule changes that we might be seeing here in the Pickleverse in the near future. And so, yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thank you, Zane, for making the time to kind of go over this. I know it's an important topic to you. You released a report today. So yeah, let's dive in.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm glad to be here, and just glad that people will listen. At the end of the day, I think everyone is going to formulate their opinion on the serve, whether they have or not already is another question. But my entire idea with the report was just to actually put some numbers to things, which I think should be a big part of any rules decision that's made. Wherever we can find data, I think that we should utilize it to make better decisions. So, yeah, when you look at the report, you can still have your opinion. If you still think that serve should be illegal, that's fine by me. I'm just glad that you looked at it and factored into your opinion. So.
Well said. And I busted out my nifty ref outfit since this is not really being it's not a change that's coming about by the refs, but I just thought it was somewhat appropriate. And if we think Zane is full of BS, I got the little yellow flag here. So I guess the first question I have is, what made you decide to even begin doing the chainsaw serve? How did you learn it, and how has it affected your game?
Yeah, definitely. So I think we should probably just give a little bit of background on all of this. So Morgan Evans has been very outspoken in the serve debate as well, because Morgan Evans is the originator of all of this trouble. So basically, what Morgan started doing several years ago was in his toss, snapping his finger. Oh, I got myself in the face. Clearly, I'm not that good at it. But in his toss, spinning that ball, snapping his fingers. And first few times I played against Morgan, I had a very, very difficult time returning his serve. So I started toying around with how to get spin on the ball, and it just happened to be that right around the time of the 2021 rules, I started spinning the ball off of my paddle. Sent a video over to Don Stanley to see whether or not that would be legal. And I had no idea really about the change in the rules, the COVID serve rule. I was just wondering whether that would be legal or not. So initially, what I started doing was spinning the ball off of my paddle to generate spin on the toss, and that became legal on January 26th, I believe, of this year, when the COVID rules went into effect. Um,
And why did that become legal? Wasn't there something having to do with not touching the ball as much, or for people who were potentially disabled and had to use other means of serving?
Correct. I believe there was some story where a lady didn't want to touch the ball because of COVID, so she tossed the ball up to herself, um, to hit it and avoid touching the ball. So I've actually mostly gone away from that serve because I find it to be less effective than other alternatives.
Yeah.
So um, I originally started spinning the ball off my paddle, but then I found that you could generate more RPMs by taking the ball on the paddle fingers here. Here's my paddle hand, setting it on my paddle fingers, and then spinning. So I started doing this when the PPA, decided not to implement the 2021 rules. So I found a little bit of a workaround, and I found that it actually works far better. Now, I don't touch the the ball to the grip of the paddle at all. It's all on my fingers, and I find that that actually generates more RPMs. And theoretically, that has been legal for the entirety of pickleball. That's been something that's always been legal. It's just not something that had ever been thought of, I suppose.
So it's, I mean, it's innovation, right? And it's progression. I think it's all. I personally have adopted the finger spin serve after you came out to Austin and we played our match, and you did Clint.
You
You
just
know,
had to
you,
bring that up, didn't you?
what's
You had
that?
to, you had to bring our match up.
No. Well, you know, I won't post the link in the comments after this. But
Yeah, of
no,
course
I mean, I've actually, it has become a definite advantage for me, and I think that it makes the game way more fun. Like I am a fan of it. Another member of the Kitchens team, Jason Aspis, he has implemented it into his game, and I know a lot of people have, and a lot of pros have, and so I applaud you for the innovation and Morgan for the innovation. I think the sport is in this amazing kind of place of growth, right? And I think when something is in that space, I think innovation is good. I don't think it's a bad thing. So I love it. But
Yeah, and I can. So the thing is, I can entirely understand the intent of not wanting the serve to become the same factor that it is in tennis. I think a lot of people enjoy pickleball because of the ease of starting a point. And I don't envision this serve, and I think I have the data to show it. I don't envision this serve being a way that we have John Isners of pickleball that are ending 60% of their points on serves, right? Now, I did my study based on pro players, but pro players is where the data is really available. I would love to do a study, and if anybody has an idea of how to do this, I would love to do a study of the serve effectiveness of people using the chainsaw serve at different levels. My piece of evidence, and this is basically just going completely on my word, is I generate my income by teaching. And every single clinic, people want to learn the chainsaw serve, and every single clinic, there are people doing the chainsaw serve. I've yet to see a 3-0 player who has a 6-0 chainsaw, right? I've yet to see somebody who's been able to completely take over a game at 3-0 when the rest of their skill set is 3-0 and they're just dominating the rest of the 3-0s only with their serve. I haven't seen it happening. Now there is the Porter Bar match, right? The Porter Bar match, I had I have had a chance to review, and there's a definite tell in my serve, in Morgan's serve, and in Porter Bar's serve. So whether or not people are going to pick up on that, we'll find out. But I can tell where Morgan is going. I can tell where Porter is going. I can tell everybody whose serve I've ever faced. I know where that ball is going to bounce. I've yet to see somebody who can effectively hide the spin of their serve.
What about the variations of where you are turned, you know, with your back to the opponent? Do you feel, or Morgan doing that as well, do you feel that that is different, or do you feel that that is kind of more innovation? It's just another way of, you know, it's like a pitcher hiding the ball behind his back and not knowing what, you know, what pitch he's going to throw. Do you think it's fair, unfair? Where does that fall for you?
So I don't think that Morgan and I'll speak for myself, also without trying to give away my tricks. But the reason why I started facing different directions was not to hide my toss. In fact, I think well, I'll stop there. I don't think Morgan faces different directions to hide the spin that he's doing. I really don't try to hide the ball from the opponent, and I didn't even really think of doing that.
Yeah, and that wasn't an accusation at all. I think by turning your back, it is naturally hiding the ball. And what I assume is it's additional spin on your body and the paddle, right? That is tweaking the ball along with the spin of the ball. Is that accurate? I mean, I didn't think it was for you to try to deceive anyone. I thought it was just another technique of the spin.
No comment on that. I'm sure this is all going to be public knowledge pretty soon. Like, I don't think it's super hard to figure out. We'll put it that way.
Public knowledge as in we are live streaming this?
Well, I mean, I think that the secret is going to be out with why Morgan, myself, and Porter face our bodies in different directions. It's not fully out. Some people know it. I don't know whether your average person knows it, but definitely some of the pro players know it.
So I'm an average person for sure.
So I'm not going to give away the tricks. I think we're probably pretty close to everybody knowing why that's done. My intention is never to actually hide the ball. It's to generate a different type of spin. But I think there's a good argument to be made that so long as you can see the ball, you should be able to make a read on the toss. I would agree with anybody that if you can't see that ball, I think that
changing the direction of the spin, right?
The way that I face.
Yeah, I mean, it has something to do with the direction. I see a grimace. I'm pulling out the yellow flag. I'm picking up on some BS. I think I'm right. But anyways, moving on. Let's dive into your report for a minute. Sure. I found it fascinating, and it got. I think a lot of people seem to be interested in the study. How many people helped you out with this report?
Yeah. So if you'd like, I could toss it up on my screen here, and we can kind of go through it pretty briefly. Yeah. So I was very fortunate to have help from a post that I put into the kitchen. Can you see me? Can you see that screen?
Yeah. Hang on one sec.
There we go. Yeah. So I was fortunate to have help from our friends over at the kitchen. I ended up with 60 different volunteers here who all watched a certain amount of matches. In total, we reviewed about 160 matches. So if the rules committee has other questions or actually specifies a reasoning for why we want the rule change, there is other data that I think I could compile to help the case for the chainsaw serve.
And are you submitting?
However, at this point,
are you submitting this
I don't
to the rules
fully
committee?
know.
So sorry, are you submitting this to the rules committee?
Right now, there's no way to formally submit something to the rules committee. There was a public comment period that I apparently missed before I even knew that this was an issue, and Morgan missed before it was an issue. However, I've heard that everyone on the rules committee has taken a look at the Facebook post that Morgan has made. So I'm assuming that this report is going to find its way to the eyes of the rules committee. Yeah. So. Yeah. So basically, I had a couple of different hypotheses. That first, that the serve is becoming more and more of a weapon over time. I've seen that my serve resulted in a lot of errors initially, but that's becoming far and far less as people get accustomed to it. I've played against Morgan serve, and I've pulled the pro players, and it's very, very in agreement that Morgan has the best serve in pickleball. I pulled pros, see where they stand, and I gave my 2 cents here. So the volunteers and I looked back to match film from 2016 or 2014 onwards to show that the serve is becoming more and more of a weapon over time, just in general. Now, if you look at my data set, which is publicly available, and message me if you want to see the data and haven't had a chance to figure out where it's at, you'll see that my sample size for 2014, 2016, 2017, 2018 is small, right? It's not a tremendous amount of matches because there weren't a ton of matches that were streamed, right? You search 2014 pickleball on YouTube and there aren't a ton. But in recent history, the amount of missed returns is certainly trending forward. Okay? When I implemented my chainsaw serve, first off, I would like to say that I had a good serve before all of this, right? I was a player that bought into the idea of risk and reward on the serve, and I used my serve as a weapon and likely had a higher service winner percentage than most players even before this. But I unveiled that chainsaw serve in February, and initially, players seeing it for the first time were very. They didn't. It was difficult to figure out how that ball was going to bounce, right?
And you busted it out versus Tyson, correct? That was the first match.
So that's a misconception, actually.
Okay.
I started using the Morgan Evans serve in Punta Gorda, January of this year. Morgan Evans serve meaning spinning it off of the fingers. And at the same tournament, I showed people the chainsaw serve, where I was serving it off of the paddle. And I think that those two things were conflated. I did not use the chainsaw serve at all against Tyson in that tournament because it was before January 26th. I would have been called illegal for using that serve. However, the spin serve with the fingers was working very well, and I'm certain that I have the numbers of missed returns and likely the percentages in my in that spreadsheet somewhere or another. But that'd be difficult to find right now. So there was an initial spike in missed returns, but as you can see, just in August, again, not a large sample size, but these numbers are definitely trending downwards as people see the serve more and more. And here's a perfect example. Jack Foster, J.W. Johnson, Jay Devier, and Tyson McGuffin are the players that I have played the most since the creation of the chainsaw serve. So in our first encounter, Jack missed almost 40% of his returns. JW, 35. Jay, 15. Tyson handled it pretty well the first time, right? Jack and JW both went down very, very precipitously as they became accustomed to that serve, right? As you've seen this serve more times, you start to be able to make a read on it, to make adjustments for it. And so now all three of these players in their last match were missing somewhere between 4 and I believe that was like 12% of their returns, which the control amount of missed serves in 2021 of all matches that were pulled by the volunteers was about 8%. So my serve actually in these last encounters was a pretty average serve when compared to the rest of pro pickleball. So one of the things that I argued was the off of the paddle serve. I agree. I think should go away, but I don't think because I think that off the paddle is probably a double hit, and I think that there's further manipulation for that rule. However, I think that the off of the fingertips serve should stay, and it's actually less effective than Morgan's serve, right? Morgan has, again, this is a small sample size. This is over 2 tournaments. Actually, I believe 3 tournaments played in 2021 from Morgan. And he has an unreturned serve percentage of about 21%. And that should be noted that Morgan is a doubles player, right? I don't have the statistics for it yet, but the serve, I would guess, and again, I don't have the numbers for it, but I would guess that serve returns are missed far more in singles than they are in doubles, right? In singles, if you hit a short return, you're in a very bad position. In doubles, you're not nearly in as bad of a position if you hit a short return. So there's less pressure to hit a good return in doubles. Yet Morgan is able to convert that into a higher percentage of unreturned serves than even I am. So,
Interesting.
My number of unreturned serves since March includes singles, doubles, and mixed doubles. Morgan's unreturned serve number only counts doubles and mixed doubles. So, his serve is absolutely the most dominant in pickleball, and it is going to continue to be legal even after these proposed rule changes. And the pros believe that as well. So I polled 51 pros. I sent this out. I sent a little Google form out to about 100 plus pros, and 51 of them responded. 51% said that Morgan had the best serve. 25% said that I had the best serve. 10% Deckel, and about 15% other pros. So,
and Deckel is just a traditional power serve, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep. Deckel does not impart any spin. So pros are pretty unanimously agreeing, or not unanimous, but like largely agreeing that paddle toss should be gone. 2/3 of them about think that the paddle hand toss should be gone, but 2/3 of them believe that the non-paddle hand, the left hand, should remain legal. So again, this goes back to the idea of the objective of the rule change. Is the rule change to limit the effectiveness of the serve? Because if that's the objective, you need to look to the non-paddle hand serve toss as well. That has the highest potential for the best serve, in my opinion, and in the data.
Which is Morgan's technique.
Correct. Yep. And so basically, I think that we're basing a rules decision off of March, April, May, June, July, maybe 5 months of data, and we haven't seen the slowing down in the amount of errors, right? That portion of things hasn't been accounted for. So I think that we're making this decision just a little bit too quickly before we have the full idea of how things are going. Does that make sense?
For sure. And do you think that it is actually the do you think that they're basing it off of the pro game? Is there something that has to do with the old school pickleball people who don't want to see the innovation and quite frankly don't have to go play and at their local court and not be able to return people's serve? Like, I feel like it's not all about the pro game and it's not all about that small sample size. I do think that there's something about this being a sport that is predominantly made up of 45 to 65-year-old people, which is definitely skewing younger. And I just wonder if there's something about that where there's these new people, young people coming into the game and they don't want to see the change. And if I'm in their shoes, I can kind of understand that. Do you think that plays a pretty significant role in this?
Yeah, absolutely. And I also don't want to see the serve become a dominant force in pickleball. There's a reason why I was bad at tennis, and it was because I couldn't serve. My serve sucked in tennis. So I'm very glad that we have to serve underhand. Again, it goes back to the idea that I've yet to see anybody completely dominating a 3-0, a 3-5, a 4-0 rec game, or any game truly, that just with their serve. Now, exception being Porter Bar, right? But as you see that serve more, you're going to be able to make a read on it.
Do you think that this change potentially going into effect limits innovation across the board for the sport? Does that concern you as one of the top players in the game? I mean, as someone, I'm not a top player in the game. I'm, trying to be a solid 4-0 player at the moment. But for me, it does concern me, right? Because I think that um, that the sport is not what it was initially created to be, which was a sport for kids, right? And I think that we have to look at how we can make improvements, and also consider the fact that better athletes are coming into the sport. And there's going to be more tennis players coming into the sport. I think it's important that we do push on the edges of the game. So I do worry. And does that worry you? Does that concern you?
So slightly, and the concern is that it is an innovation stunting kind of mindset where it seems like they haven't fully given this a chance to play out, right? And that's basically my full argument. Where does this where does this actually go? If we're sitting here a year from now and people have still not figured out the serve, or it is completely dominant and pickleball is boring to watch at the pro level, sure, I think that's when we can make an adjustment, right? But before we see the what this actually ends up being, I think that does scare me a little bit, where it's not given its chance. I mean, what if the again Morgan made a phenomenal point with the Ernie, right? There's no way that was an intent of the rule. You can't make an argument to me that that was an intent of the rule to be able to jump around the kitchen that they created to stop the big guy from crashing into the net. But it's a part of the game that we absolutely love. So if that was just put into a coffin 2 months into its origination, right, or its debut, I think we'd be missing a very fun and important part of the game. So,
I agree.
but it became dominant, if it became something that people were able to do somehow or another every point, and then it just became boring to watch, say that happens a year from then, right? I think absolutely you make an adjustment, but you need to see where it ends up being. It would suck for the sport if the Ernie had been outlawed right away.
Yeah, I mean, I think some, including myself, might say that one of the most exciting things to happen to pickleball this year was when you unleash the serve. Like I love that time frame of where I was going back and studying it, and then you guys would iterate on it. Like, I think, to me, that was so fun to watch. And I think that it is, I don't know. And I also think there's something that needs to be said about the fact that at tournaments, I've only played in a couple in the year that I've known about pickleball, that I've seen people do illegal serves in tournaments. And there is that gray area. There's serves where the wrist is cocked and it's not below the waist, and people aren't getting called on it. And yet that isn't this big thing that, like, if that's not being sorted out, then I feel like this is just, it's just like there's something more than, I think, it being that the pros can't figure it out. That's how it seems to me, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to make entirely honestly, I'm not a huge fan of subjective rules, and the the three aspects of the serve rule are all subjective at this point. Is the top part of your wrist below the or above the bottom part of your paddle? Wait, no. Yeah, is the paddle head below the wrist? is your contact point below your belly button, and are you swinging in at least a 0.01 degree upwards motion at the point of contact? Those things, I've looked and I've went and filmed myself doing some serves that are borderline on purpose, whether it's chopping down or whether it's what the angle is or where that ball is into my relation. I can't, in relation to my belly button, I can't figure out the legality of the serve when I'm pausing it and looking at it, right? So, I mean, there are issues with the serve rule, that's for sure. Adding spin to a toss, I think, is the least of the serve rule issues.
How I'm just curious, how long did it take you to practice these different variations?
It takes a long time, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So it's not an overnight thing. It definitely takes some time. One of my favorite moments from this year is actually when it was the first tournament that I was using the off the fingers toss at a PPA event. Because the PPA did not implement the 2021 rules that allowed the off the paddle toss to be legal, which is great because it made me find a new way and an even better way. But it's not easy, and my toss does kind of go all over the place. Perfect example of which was that first PPA tournament that I played. I was in the finals, the gold medal match against Ben, and I'm doing my serve, and I think it was like, I don't know, maybe the second, third, fourth point of the game match, and I'm serving. I'm looking down at my hands, right? Because I've got my ball here. I go like this. Toss gets away from me. Boom! Right in the face. I had to run down that ball, go get it, and
Not embarrassing at all, right?
within 10 seconds. So um, it's like, even though you get spin on that ball, it definitely causes me to miss more serves.
Yeah.
And it definitely adds difficulty to what I'm doing, right? So
So I was talking to our team. Our team was discussing it today, and someone made the point that maybe a good compromise would be, and I want to take a step back real quick. First, I think people should be applauding the amount of time that you put into this to create this innovation. I have applauded you. You're one of my favorite people on tour. I think I've said to you how cool I think it is, but when you're here in Austin, but back to that point, someone on our team said that what if there's a compromise where, because when I do the serve, I'd say 1 out of every 10 times my toss is bad, and then I catch it, and it's the opposing team is like, what, this is ridiculous, right? And some people are like, that's a fault, right? But it's not, according to the rules. But what if it was? What if you had one shot, and if it hits you in the face, you lose the serve, right? Like I feel like that is something that's more fair.
I think that should be, I mean, that's a risk that I would be willing to take. I have no problem with that whatsoever. I think that'd be a solid compromise as well. You mess up your toss, that sucks.
Maybe we should throw that up as a poll in the kitchen, see what people think.
There we go. That's all we need is a little bit more controversy.
So I guess my last question is, I want to be respectful of your time and everyone watching y'all's time. And again, thanks so much for tuning in. And Zane, thanks for making the time. I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I think you're just a great addition to this sport. I love your vibe. You're super positive. The report that you did, we can, in another life, maybe you could be an auditor, but I think
past
life, right? What do you think is going to happen? Where do you think this will ultimately land in terms of the rule change?
Yeah, you know what? I'm not fully sure. I'm hoping that we can give things a little bit more time to play out, but I would say I think it might be 50-50. I don't know. I don't fully know, but either
And
way.
when is this happening? When is the vote, or when is it going down?
So the process for getting a rules change is anybody can submit a rule change Any submitted rule change goes to the IFP, which I believe is the International Federation of Pickleball. They rate things on I believe, a 1 to 10 scale. And if there's an average rating of some number that I don't know what it is, that goes to the USA Pickleball Rules Committee. The USA Pickleball Rules Committee votes, and their vote gets presented to the USA Pickleball Board of Directors. And I think that we are at the point of having their vote go to, I believe that the Rules Committee is currently voting. But I think they're voting on multiple topics, and I don't know which topics they have voted on, which topics they haven't. Yeah.
And anyone can submit a rule change?
I believe so, yeah.
I'm gonna have so much fun with that.
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. I'm just looking at any questions. Unfortunately, Facebook won't let me see all the questions. Dane Gingrich is in favor of the spin toss. He said that he has not had trouble returning it. And he also asked if we could fund.
Who said that?
Dane Gingrich. And he also asked if we could fund his dinner tonight. His client canceled.
Yeah, there's an idea. I'm not going to touch that one, but
smart.
Yeah. So Dane's been a pretty big proponent of this as well, and I appreciate him chiming in there because I think it's another way of just separating a professional game from it's another way of that the top best players are getting a smaller advantage over other players, right? So he's been a big proponent of it, and I appreciate it because yes, there's a very bad misconception that the serve is not readable. So there's talk going around that it's a 50-50 chance of guessing correctly, which is entirely incorrect. And I have basically the numbers to prove it. So in my last encounter against J.W. Johnson, he missed 4 returns of 81 serves that I hit to him, right? Let's ballpark that as he misses 1 in 20 returns. So if it's truly a 50-50 chance that you guess correctly and are able to return the serve, the probability of J.W. Johnson returning 19 out of 20 serves, or let's say 50-50 chance, right? The probability of flipping a coin and getting 19 out of 20 heads is 0.0019%, which comes out to basically about 1 in 5,000 chance that he was just correctly guessing every time. So it is not a coin toss. The serve spin is entirely readable. Players are going to learn to read it and have learned to read it. So the conception that it's a coin toss is completely out of there.
My final question is, I know Ben Johns has adopted it. Anna Lee Waters. I think there's a ton, right? Like I'm tired, so I'm blanking, but I know there's several players that I've seen do it. Have you talked to them about it?
Well, this goes back to a conversation that we had in Indianapolis with Byron, where a lot of people were saying that the paddle hand is considered to be part of your paddle, right? But so they're asking why this is not a double hit, which I didn't fully get a great answer to. But my question to them while they were all arguing with Byron is, why don't you guys just do it? And after that, a lot of them did. Leia, J.W. Johnson, Jay, Ben. I'm seeing tons of players doing it. Anna Lee. Me. Jared. Yeah, of course. I think players are. So sorry. What was the question?
That was it. I was just wondering what they thought, but I could talk about this all night, and I don't want to bore everyone that's out there. So Well, again, Zane, thank you so much for everything that I think you bring to the sport. You're a breath of fresh air. You bring just a great vibe and fun, just like personality and quirkiness. And I just think you're great for the sport. And I hope that this goes in your favor because I think it's good. And yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. I don't know if you have any final words, Zane.
No, well, thank you very much for having me, Jared. And I'm always glad to be contributing to the kitchen, and I'm happy for what you've been able to create and what you've been able to do in pickleball. In only what you found out about this sport a year ago, right?
Just
Which is
over a
pretty
year ago,
awesome.
I did not know what pickleball was, and it's completely changed my life in so many ways. And maybe we'll have you on interviewing me about how all the ways it's changed my life next time.
Hey, there we go. There's an idea. Stay tuned for next week, viewers.
Awesome. Thank
All
you
right.
so much, guys. Thanks,
Thanks,
Zane.
Jared.
Take care.